Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are standing by for an update any minute now on this shooting from Friday that killed a 2-year-old in Melbourne, injured 2 other people. There haven't been many details released about this in the days since. Just in the last little bit, we did get an identification, a name of that 2-year-old who was killed. We'll get more into that in just a minute. We are standing by for a 2 o'clock update from Commander Shawn Eising from the Melbourne Police Department. There's a live look at the podium there inside the police department where we expect that briefing to begin any minute now, and we will bring that to you live here on Fox Local on Florida Live. We are also talking with Florida Tax Watch about a report showing the impact of Florida's 2020 census undercount. Fascinating conversation with these experts of kind of looking into the costs of Florida not getting the full count that it should have in 2020. This is something that we heard about recently from Governor Census, from the Attorney General James Uthmeier, saying they want to take steps and are pushing the federal government to kind of rectify that situation. About 750,000 Floridians did not respond to the census in 2020, and so that created quite a significant undercount that should have gotten Florida another congressional seat. And there are also a number of impacts in other ways, and we'll get into that coming up in just a little bit as well. But Florida Tax Watch kind of looking at some of those impacts, also looking at what the impacts would be under a couple of different scenarios that we have heard, and as far as what the count would be if you only count legal residents or only count citizens. So we'll break down all those scenarios in a conversation coming up in just a little bit with Florida Tax Watch. It is also Tuesday, and that's the day we speak with our friends at Politico Florida to talk about a number of things in Florida politics. We'll talk about the CFO's race, talk about special elections being held in Orlando today as well, in a state Senate and a state House race. In our Tampa connection, you're going to have an update on a kidnapped woman found safe in St. Pete. This is a story that still has a lot of questions, but we will talk with Linda Hurtado about that in just a little bit. But just to get us all kind of reset here as we get ready for this news conference in Melbourne, this is some video from the scene on Friday on Poplar Lane, where this shooting happened late Friday night. It was a home there. When police responded, they say they found 3 gunshot victims inside that home. 2 of them were adults, but one of them was that 2-year-old child. And according to police, the adults were taken to the hospital in critical condition, and the child was dead at the scene. We do know they were all part of a family. Fox 35's Esther Bauer spoke yesterday with a family friend who was just heartbroken by this, trying to figure out what happened and why, trying to piece together. You see the memorial outside that home. This was the scene just yesterday. Police were back out at the scene yesterday as well, still combing through evidence, still very much an active scene. And we've gotten no official word from police. Nothing about what the situation might have been, nothing about any suspects. The whole thing has put some neighbors in that area that we had to talk to kind of on edge, not knowing what the circumstances were or what the situation was, and so hoping to get some clarity about that here shortly. The Melbourne police tell us this afternoon that they are still pursuing what they call active leads in connection with this. We do have some more information now about the victims. The 2-year-old has been identified as Blessin Leitner. She is the 2-year-old who died in that shooting on Friday. The 2 other victims, a 54-year-old man and a 48-year-old woman, still in the hospital right now, as we're told they are receiving ongoing medical treatment for their injuries. Investigators did confirm that those people were shot inside the home. They still have not released details about the circumstances of this. They said they have thoroughly processed that crime scene. As I told you, they did have people out on that scene, not just yesterday, not just Friday, but also again yesterday. And so we know they've been out in that neighborhood, Poplar Lane, for a while processing that scene, but they said they are still very actively investigating this. It is very much an ongoing investigation at this point, and kind of waiting to release some more details about this. It does appear that Commander Eising walking up to give this briefing, and so let's go ahead and listen in as we anticipate some new details about this deadly shooting in Melbourne.
This should work. Is that you on the firm?
Yes, thank you. Is everybody ready? Okay. My name is Shawn Eising, SHAWN EISING. I'm Commander of Community Services with Melbourne Police Department. On August 29th at approximately 10:51 p.m., our officers responded to 904 Poplar Lane in reference to a shooting with victims. They encountered 3 total victims, 2 adults, one black male, one black female, and a juvenile, 2 years of age. The 2 adults were medically treated and taken to a local hospital where they're receiving and continue to receive care. Unfortunately, the 2-year-old child, Blesson Leitner, was pronounced deceased at the scene. Since that time period, our officers and our investigators have been conducting a number of investigatory processes to include search warrants on the property, and additional search warrants to investigate different aspects of this crime. They've conducted numerous interviews. They're receiving a number of leads and information from the public, and they are conducting those follow-ups as well, and they continue to do so. We continue to urge the public to provide the information. We've been given permission to send out a request through Crime Line. They are committing $5,000 as reward to this case, so there is opportunities there. But as with any situation or any incident like this, the public's assistance is always welcomed. And we will continue to follow up anything that we receive, as well as go through what we have already learned. Is there any specific questions?
Can you tell us about the other adults in the house and the other children?
I cannot give specifics to the number of people that were in the house. The house was occupied. Everybody that was in the home is being interviewed to the best of our abilities, and leading us to, follow up other investigations. I can confirm that Blesson Leitner does not reside at the home. She was staying there as being watched as her parents were taking care of having a night out. So.
Were the victims her grandparents, Blessons?
I believe the male victim was of relation.
If you can give us any information, someone came into the house, broke in, like how, was it there a fight? Do you guys know anything, or is that still under investigation?
It's still under investigation. We are looking into every aspect and looking at any potential, whether it was one of the people in the home, somebody that came into the home. Those are all still things that we are actively looking at, and we are not ruling out anything at this time.
Commander, so you are actively looking for a suspect or suspects in this case?
We have not definitively identified a specific suspect, but we are evaluating and looking at every aspect or every potential lead.
So with the murderer still out there, the neighbors in the area do feel a sense of fear. Is there a threat to public safety?
We have not encountered anything that would indicate that the neighborhood has a specific threat outside of this home.
Commander, do you have any idea at this point why this happened?
No, we're not able to identify a motive, and that's quite often the key question everybody asks, but is quite often the most difficult to answer. So we will do everything in our power to try to determine that, but we do not have anything we can release at this time.
Can you comment about how hard, not only this is for the neighborhood, the family, but officers to go into a scene like that?
These are tremendous, and I will tell you this, our investigators give every victim of a homicide their complete, undivided attention, full 100% effort. But when you insert a 2-year-old child like Blesson Leitner, it summons an extra level of energy that, you know, takes them to that next level of trying to determine what happened, and they are physically, mentally affected by these things. Our police officers, our investigators, their parents, their aunties, their uncles, they identify these situations with their own family, which makes it difficult on them emotionally, physically, and it also gives them that level of energy to seek out and determine what happened, and that drive to give it that extra effort. So as far as that goes, yes, this is a horrible situation. The members of the community, the officers who responded, the investigators, and the employees that are helping with the investigation, those are difficult situations. Absolutely, one of the worst things that a police officer and an employee from a police department can respond to.
And I just want to make sure that I'm clear. You are not saying this was like a random break-in. You are focused on this could have been just a family situation with everyone inside that home?
We are looking at all aspects. There's nothing that's been discovered yet that indicate that it was, you know, a random act or a specific act. We're looking at all aspects of what could have happened. It's a difficult situation to be able to. We, in this situation, walk a fine line. You know, we want the public to be assured that they're not in danger, but at the same time, we can't tip our hats to the information we provide at risk of identifying potential, you know, information that a suspect could potentially utilize to either escape or leave, or someone else takes, you know, the law into their own hands and goes out and acts on behalf of the victims. And so we have to be careful as to what we release at this time. So as I said earlier, we don't have any information that leads us to believe the neighborhood and the residents in the area are at risk, but we are investigating every aspect.
Is there worry that there could be retaliation?
There's always a concern in a situation like this where we're not completely confident as to what happened. We respond to situations all the time. Sometimes we respond to a situation where you've got 5 cameras from different angles and three witnesses that give absolutely the best testimony. Sometimes you respond and you've got 20 people saying 20 different things, no cameras, no information, and you have to start from scratch and do everything you can. And the majority of the times we're in the middle. And this is one of those situations where we're in the middle. We've got a lot of good information flowing. Our investigators have a lot of things to follow up on. It's just when you open a box of a 1,000-piece puzzle, you just got to start somewhere and start putting it all together. And that's where we're at right now.
It was a holiday weekend. Was this a holiday gathering?
It was 10:51 p.m. and there really wasn't. It was a normal night for the residents as far as we know.
I saw the police have been at the house every day. Are you guys going to continue to do that?
We still have, for better terms, control of the home. Like I said earlier, we do search warrants on the home, even if, you know, in situations like this where there's, you know, there may be multiple residents, multiple people have access to different areas, we legally are obligated to get a search warrant in that situation, and we will generally hold the home until we've determined that we've investigated to the best of our ability and we have no reason to need to go back in.
Will the home still be held, or has that been cleared?
It will be cleared at some point. Obviously, there's things like autopsies and different things that will take place and different investigatory items that we'll look at. We'll even go back and look at, you know, the officers that were on scene, look at their body cameras and review things and determine, hey, did we miss something? Because someone might go, hey, that item wasn't there, or this was different than what we recall seeing. And so the reason we're holding that house is to continue to work that process and determine what else might be needed.
Are you comfortable telling us if the shooter is known to the victims?
We are not releasing any information as of right now. I
Are you
apologize.
comfortable saying how many other people were in the home?
No, we're not releasing that at this time either.
How cooperative have people been as you try to investigate, figure out exactly what happened?
There's always a mixture. I mean, sometimes people are fully cooperative. Some people are. When you respond to a situation like this and you've got victims, they're initially in shock. Obviously, we have 2 victims that are in the hospital receiving medical attention. They may not even be able to talk to us. So those things delay our ability to take on certain aspects of the investigation. And we're reliant on those recoveries and those opportunities to discuss the incident with those individuals. And so overall, I've been told that the participation and the cooperation has been positive, and we hope that continues.
Can you tell us if the 911 call, did it come from inside the home? Was it a neighbor that heard something, or where the initial reports of a shooting came from?
I believe the initial came from inside the home, but I'll be honest, I can't give you that 100%.
And at this point, do you think that Blessin was targeted by whoever did this, or she happened to be caught in some kind of shooting situation that was happening in the home?
We hope the investigation will make that determination, but I can't speak specific to that.
And I guess just talk with us your hopes that this case doesn't go cold and we're going to see justice served.
That's always the case, and like I said, our investigators are giving this 100%. We've got people that have literally probably slept only a couple hours this past few days, so they're committing to it, and luckily an agency of our size can allocate resources and dedicate themselves to the situation, and that's just what we're doing right now.
The 2 that are in the hospital currently, are you going to be releasing their names? Are they from the area, and do they live in that house?
They are from the Melbourne area, but we're not going to be releasing their names as part of their protective rights as victims.
And do you have a photo of Blessin that you can release?
As I said, we've been working with Crime Line, and there should be one released here shortly via them.
And just a question, you know, a lot of people order DoorDash or have people who come by late at night. Can you just offer a statement as to how this person got into the house to kind of let folks know that maybe, you know, what happened?
Well, we've not received any information that would lead us to believe that it was a DoorDash or something similar to that.
How did they get in the house?
We're not at liberty to discuss the specifics of that at this time. I apologize.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you, Commander.
All right. Thank you.
Commander Shawn Eising from Melbourne Police answering some questions. There's still a lot they're not releasing right now about this shooting that killed 2-year-old Blessin Leitner back on August 29th. They have not identified a suspect. They said they're still not sure all about the circumstances of this, but they're not ruling anything out when it comes to this investigation. They said that 2-year-old Blessin Leitner was staying at that home while her parents were out for the night. One of the 2 other victims, the 54-year-old man believed to be the grandfather of that 2-year-old, the 54-year-old man, the 48-year-old woman still in the hospital right now. And again, the 2-year-old who died on Friday has been identified as 2-year-old Blessin Leitner. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 news anchor Linda Hurtado, who joins us live now from the Fox 13 newsroom. And Linda, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Garrett. We're going to start our Tampa report with an update on a missing woman out of St. Petersburg. This woman, believed to have been kidnapped from a St. Pete apartment complex, has been found safe. But there's still a lot of unanswered questions about what happened. The St. Petersburg Police Department said yesterday that 26-year-old Jayana Clark was involved in an altercation with the man shortly after 7 a.m. at the Crescent Lane Apartments off Gandy Boulevard. Police said that the man forced Clark into her own Nissan Altima and then drove away and hit two parked vehicles before heading north on US 19. Investigators later found that car but said Clark and her kidnapper had moved to a different vehicle. Then early this morning, police confirmed that Clark had been found safe, but they didn't release any additional details. Fox 13 spoke with a neighbor who says he witnessed the abduction and tried to intervene.
I didn't get to see anything before that. The neighbor said that there was a physical altercation, so it sounded like he punched her in the face, knocked her out, and took her in the car. I just wish I was there sooner. I could have prevented this. I'm going to beat myself up over that.
Well, police also confirmed that Clark is the same woman reported missing by Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office back in July of 2024. She was found after an 18-hour search. Detectives back then said she was found unharmed with Javante Bell, who was arrested. St. Pete police believe the latest incident involved a former boyfriend of Clark's, but they did not confirm whether it was Bell. Another sad story here to tell you, a tragic discovery on the waters in Manatee County, where the search for the body of a missing swimmer wrapped up. The sheriff's office said yesterday that 20-year-old Avigan Patel was last seen swimming off Bean Point on Anna Maria Island around 7 o'clock on Sunday. Investigators tell us that bystanders rescued another man who was swimming with Patel, but Patel was swept away. The U.S. Coast Guard and several local agencies took part in the search for Patel, which resumed early yesterday. Hours later, officials said they recovered a body, and this morning they confirmed Patel's identity. They say Patel was one of 5 students at an aviation school in Lakeland visiting Anna Maria Island. Well, Polk County commissioners are talking today about new restrictions weeks after this wild brawl went viral and led to several arrests. The proposed ordinance would establish no-go zones for boats on parts of Lake Winterset, Lake Clinch, and Lake Ariana, turning them into swim-only areas. So last month, Sheriff Grady Judd said a large fight broke out on a private vacant lot resembling a small island. In video, which you saw of the incident, went viral. 8 people, ranging from 17 to 40, were arrested during all of that. At a news conference in mid-August, Judd called out leaders to make changes to improve safety for visitors and people that live there.
We have historically tried to warn, to educate, because we want families together on our lakes having a good time together. But these kind of knuckleheads here doing this stuff just disrupts everything.
Well, last spring, Judd sent a letter to commissioners making the case for boater-restricted areas, pointing out that with more than 550 lakes and 93,000 acres of waterways, his deputies just can't be everywhere at once. Commissioners say the penalties for breaking this ordinance, if approved, include fines of up to $500 or up to 60 days in jail. Busch Gardens closing one of its iconic rides. I mean, everyone has been on the Stanley Falls Flume at one point or another. After more than half a century, one of the original rides at Busch Gardens is about to make its final splash. The Stanley Falls Flume has been a fixture in the theme park since it opened way back in 1973. Park officials even referred to the water ride as, quote, a fan favorite for generations. But in a video posted on social media, the theme park announced the flume will close for good this Sunday, September 7th. It's not known what Busch Gardens will build in place of Stanley Falls Flume, but park officials say its closure will, quote, make way for an exciting new future attraction. The closure marks the latest in a wave of changes at the theme park. In July, the new family-friendly Wild Oasis Park opened. It features nature exhibits, a 35-foot drop tower, a splash pad, and a Latin American restaurant. I don't know, Garrett, I remember taking my kids when they were just babies on that flume ride. I hope whatever they replace it with, it cools you down like that one did. Go on the log ride during hot August days.
You know, I'm sure it's a memory for a lot of folks when you're talking about a ride that has been there since the very beginning. I mean, that's hard to say goodbye to.
Yeah, but it's been a while since I've been on it, so to their point, maybe it's time for a little change.
Yeah, that is a good point. Linda Hurtado, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection.
Nice seeing you, Garrett.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It's that time of week where we like to take the pulse of Florida politics. And joining us live now to do just that is Kimberly Leonard, who is a Politico reporter and the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter that you can get in your inbox weekday mornings. And Kimberly, good talking to you. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, nice to have you back. Glad you enjoyed some time off, much deserved, I can certainly say. Kimberly, we want to talk first about the launch of the CFO's campaign. Blaise Ingoglia kind of officially launching his run for that seat.
That's right. So the CFO, he was appointed to the job by Governor DeSantis a couple of months ago, and it was vacant because Jimmy Patronis ended up running for Matt Gaetz's old seat. So he's in Congress now. So there was kind of a domino effect that put all that into motion. But the governor, that gave him a powerful position to be able to appoint someone. And Ingoglia is someone who's very aligned with Governor DeSantis, who was one of his chief defenders when he was in the legislature. And so his announcement to run for a full term is not a surprise. He was talking about it even before being appointed. But it does make it official. It does mean he can now, start campaigning on this, start doing campaign events, grassroots events across the state, and start raising money, obviously. So far, he is unopposed on all sides, but that could change.
What is what can we expect to see at the center of this campaign? Because he has been busy in his few weeks in office already.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the CFO job, it involves regulating banking and insurance and signing the state's checkbook, okay? But Angolia has made it kind of more interesting and flashy. He's been doing a lot of stops across the state, raking through local government spending, county spending, and city spending, and essentially he'll be releasing fairly soon, probably, different reports from across the state where he's going to be arguing that some of the local spending that has been going on is wasteful or fraudulent even. And so he's going to use that then to make the case that Floridians should be supportive of reducing property taxes, essentially saying, look, they've made a lot more money, they can spend a lot less if they just get rid of some of these wasteful programs. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what the findings say, but it's sort of similar to what Elon Musk did at Doge. And so he has been jumping off of that, even though it's something that he's been talking about, for almost 20 years, is government waste. But it really gives him a platform and a very simple message, probably, for that a lot of people can wrap their heads around when they think about, okay, how could I pay less for housing? How could I pay less in property taxes? And so that is what he is building on his campaign. He put out a video, and I expect that there'll be events that he'll do in the coming weeks.
Kimberly, we had talked before about the proxy war that was kind of avoided by Gruters becoming the chair of the Republican Party. What happens now? Is there any chance there is kind of a challenge to Angolia in this race from a different Trump-supported candidate?
Yeah, there's a chance. I mean, here's where it gets dicey, right? Because so Gruters had been endorsed by Trump actually last year before the last election was even over with. And they were really staring down this proxy war with Angolia. And of course, President Trump is very popular in Florida. But when you have the perch of being in the position where you're actually doing the job, it's easier to run. That's why incumbents tend to do well, because you have that opportunity to show people what you can do. And you almost get free advertising by being able to go around the state and do it alongside the governor who remains popular. And so with Gruters at the Republican National Committee now, where he's chair, it means that that sort of proxy war between Trump and DeSantis has been sort of pushed aside. Now, is Trump going to endorse somebody else potentially for the job instead of Angolia? I don't know. We'll see. State Representative Kevin Steele, who's in Pasco County, is interested in the job. And he said if President Trump wants him to run, then he certainly will run. And so, with that backing, it could be significant. But it does seem that Angolia has really thought through what he wants his campaign to be about and how he's going to, sort of move. He's not just counting on, okay, I'm in the spot. He has a very clearly laid out campaign and message. And so for anybody, even with the president's endorsement, I think it'll be difficult. But if President Trump decides it's a race that he wants to get involved in and decides to spend time here, then that makes it very, very hard for Angolia. But we just don't know yet. And in fact, the White House told me they're not even sure.
It would certainly change the dynamics of that race. That is for certain. Speaking of elections, today is special election day for parts of Orange County, with a Senate special election and a House special election today.
Yeah, that's right. And these are two very safe Democratic seats, so that should give Democrats a little pep in their step, probably. They can expect to win these seats. It would be extremely unexpected if they were not to. But what happened was, sadly, State Senator Geraldine Thompson passed away earlier this year. And so her seat became available. And it was actually the primary that was a very sort of fraught, multiple Democrats were running. There was the eventual nominee, State Representative LaVon Bracey Davis, was also running against her brother. So it was kind of this family feud situation. But she is the one favored to win today. And in fact, she told me that the late State Senator Geraldine Thompson had told her that she wanted her to be the one to succeed her. So she, obviously has been in the legislature and is expected to win today. She's up against Willie Montague, a Republican who has a nonprofit geared toward young men in Orlando. And then sort of another piece of the domino is falling here because she is running for the state Senate. Then that opened up her state House seat. And so she endorsed Shawn in that race, and he's the Democratic candidate, ended up winning the primary, and he was also worked on her legislative staff as chief of staff. And so he's favored to win today, but he is up against Shawn, the Republican businessman in the area. And so polls close at 7, and I expect, because Florida counts things very quickly, that we'll know very soon.
Finally, Kimberly, before I let you go, what's next in Florida politics, and what should we keep an eye on?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is obviously whatever happens with Alligator Alcatraz, which is, the detention center that's in the middle of the Everglades that is slowly winding down. We're watching a lot of the court cases around that, and we're also watching to see what other detention centers sprout up as a result. And I think that we'll start to also see possibly some more announcements on illegal immigration. So I think that'll keep heating up, and that we'll probably see Florida continue to try to show the federal government that it wants to be supportive in that area.
Still, there's always seems to be something with Alligator Alcatraz for us to watch, Kimberly.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, Kimberly Leonard, Politico reporter and the Florida Playbook newsletter author, we appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. A new report from Florida Tax Watch looks at the impacts of Florida's 2020 census undercount. So as we talked earlier, an estimated 750,000 Floridians did not respond to the census survey, and that came with some costs, specifically leaving on the table likely one congressional seat, 11 to $21 billion in federal funding, according to an analysis, and also the accuracy of public data. And so there's been a lot of talk lately about rectifying that. We know the governor and the attorney general are pushing for the Trump administration, the Commerce Department that runs the census, to kind of correct that undercount from the 2020 census. There's also been talk about a mid-decade census to kind of fix some of those issues and also reapportion all of those things that have to do with congressional representation and kind of the impacts of the census. This Tax Watch report breaks down the impact of the 2020 census and kind of looks at that data that exists and recalculates the outcome of that based on 3 different scenarios. I talked with Meg Canan, who is the senior research analyst with Florida Tax Watch, and she talked about what they were able to glean from that data, and also looked at steps to make sure that Floridians are accurately counted and represented following the next census.
Florida Tax Watch has been invested in census issues since we launched our Census Institute in 2021. Our intention is to make sure that it's very clear what's at stake to Floridians if they fill out their census surveys or they don't. On top of that, we would love to see investment from the state to make sure that there's the structures needed to adequately count every Floridian. So for this report specifically, a few weeks ago, we calculated what apportionment might look like if every state was counted correctly. The post-enumeration survey is released by the Census, and what that survey does is it tries to identify anywhere that there's a miscount, because apportionment doesn't happen in a vacuum. Anytime that a state is given a priority number, it means that there's another state that's pushed down. So you really have to make sure you're calculating the differences for every single state to figure out what Florida lost. So after we released the initial report, we started to hear news that the census might look different in the future. There's some policy leaders that are talking about excluding illegal immigrants or excluding non-citizens altogether. And so we released this report because we wanted to see, does Florida's stake change if the methodology of the census changes? What we found using numbers from 2020 is if those different policy suggestions were implemented before the 2020 census, in every single scenario, Florida lost at least 1 seat.
I thought it was interesting to see you kind of walk through those scenarios. Can you kind of take us through the 3 different scenarios and what it would look like, how things would have been different, kind of using those 2020 numbers?
Of course. So the first scenario is status quo. What would have happened if the census was magically counted correctly and it was all the same as it's always been, counting every single person living in the United States on April 1st, 2020? When we recalculated using adjustments for the miscounts that were identified in the post-enumeration survey, we found that Florida, Texas, and Tennessee each would have gained a representative seat. This is pretty significant because every single one of those states are states that had statistically significant census undercounts. On the other side, if a state's gaining a seat, that means that there's some states that would be losing a seat. So in that scenario 1, Colorado, Minnesota, and Rhode Island would each lose a seat in order to give those other states the added seat. For scenario 2, we looked at what would happen if we excluded illegal immigrants from the census count in 2020. Now, our data uses the Migration Policy Institute, which uses the American Community Survey, which is based on census data. So we have to trust that this is the best publicly available data to use, but it doesn't mean that it's a perfect count of the illegal immigrant population. So when we removed that illegal immigrant population, we found that Florida, Louisiana, Ohio, Texas, and Virginia would each gain at least 1 seat. Florida, surprisingly, would gain 2. On the flip of that, we have California, Minnesota, New York, and Rhode Island each losing at least 1 seat. And when we look at this data, it's surprising because we often think Florida has immigrants, right? We're the 3rd most populous state in the nation. We're bound to have a pretty significant population. So this just attests to the fact that our census undercount was so severe in 2020 that even taking out that population, we're still missing our fair representation. When we go to the last scenario, we remove all non-citizens from the population count. And the reason we chose to explore this is there's currently a bill going through the United States House of Representatives that would explore this as a potential option. If we do this, Florida once again loses a seat, would have gained a seat if it was counted correctly, as alongside Louisiana, Missouri, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. The states that would have lost a seat in this scenario, meaning that they gave up their seat, so the other state that's now accurately counted gains a seat, would be California, Minnesota, New York, Rhode Island. In this scenario, California would lose 3 seats and New York would lose 2.
Why does this matter, Meg, when we're talking about these undercounts and all of these scenarios showing that in 2020 Florida did not have the representation that it probably should have? Why does this matter?
This matters because we are living in a representative democracy. We want to make sure that every state has fair representation, and we don't want to have any state that's being underrepresented because of the census count. The census count's a civic duty like voting. So we would hope that every Floridian feels comfortable enough to count and that our state invests in the infrastructure needed to have a successful count. So our goal here at Florida Tax Watch is to make sure that no matter what the rules are, that every state's playing by those rules to make sure that people in the United States are fairly represented.
And so how is that done? What are some of the steps to make sure there is an accurate count the next time around?
So, of course, every resident can just agree to fill out their census survey, but there's steps that can be taken by the philanthropic community and state governments to make sure that there's better processes for encouraging people to complete their census count. So on the nonprofit philanthropy side, it's very common for them to invest in grassroots movements where they utilize people who are considered trusted messengers. This could be church leaders. In some situations, it might even be local government leaders, to contact their people directly, the people who they represent, and make sure that they're filling out their census survey. On the government side, there's a process called the local update of census addresses. This master list of addresses is so important because if nobody responds to the door at one of these addresses, then the Census Bureau is going to assume they missed someone, and they can use something called data imputation to try to fill in the gaps of the people who didn't fill out their census forms. If this list is incorrect, and let's say there's an apartment complex that popped up down the street that's not on that list, they're going to assume that apartment complex doesn't exist, including everybody who lives there. So state governments, local governments can each add addresses to this list to make sure it's accurate. And before the 2007 local update of census addresses, the state of Florida invested $900,000 to make sure that the list was accurate. And if we repeat that level of investment, we should have a better chance of a more accurate census count in 2030 or whenever it might be.
Meg, what's the bottom line here? What do you want people to take away from this report?
I hope that people read it and recognize that when they fill out their census survey, it matters. There's a sense of efficacy to it where you can make real impact and real changes to the political structures of our country if you are taking the chance to fill out your census survey.
Kind of really interesting to see some of those outcomes and see the differences in the scenarios and what would have happened. And you can certainly see the importance of that census and having that accurate count. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Here's a live look inside the White House as President Donald Trump announces the move of U.S. Space Command headquarters moving to Huntsville, Alabama. This is kind of reversing a Biden-era decision which blocked an original move that would have put that Space Command headquarters permanently in Colorado. So the president making that announcement at this hour from inside the White House. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in Coral Gables earlier today, speaking there, honoring a Cuban opposition leader who was receiving a Solidarity Prize award during this ceremony. Here is Secretary Rubio's brief remarks from South Florida earlier today.
What has always struck me about Berta Soler and those who join her is that she has refused to leave. Again, this is not a criticism of those who have left, because it's perfectly understandable that there comes a moment where perhaps you can be more successful and more effective from the outside than you are from the inside. But her refusal to leave, her refusal to continue to live under the conditions that she lives under, which are incredibly oppressive, that deny her the basic rights, including the right to go to church every Sunday, is a source of incredible admiration for all of us. It's something we should all deeply admire and appreciate. She is, despite, I think those of us who are involved in the cause of freedom and liberty know exactly who she is and what she's been about. I think more people need to know about what she's done, about how inspirational she is. You said something in your comments was exactly right. This was not a political person. Frankly, political activism in Cuba is not something that's encouraged or rewarded unless you're active on behalf of the regime and their so-called fake revolution. Her willingness to step forward because she identified and saw oppression, she saw wrongdoing, and was willing not just to raise her voice to criticize it, but to actually like many of us are, on social media and in press releases. It's a lot harder to actually confront it in person with real consequences in your daily life. And so we're here today to honor for what she's done and what she continues to do. In so many ways, this is not just a plaque, this is an award that will go towards being able to continue to carry that out. And we are so grateful and honored that you were willing to do that here in South Florida with so many in this community who know this issue so well, have lived it. In many cases, just looking around at some of the faces, there are people here today who have also faced down this regime, who have also faced down oppression in Cuba or in their homelands, and are living testaments to that level of bravery and courage.
And that was Secretary Rubio speaking earlier today in South Florida. Well, you may have seen this video getting a lot of attention on social media. A 5-year-old boy in the Jacksonville area who wandered away from home, but if he was going to do it, he may have wandered in to just the right place.
We arrived on scene. Hello. Hello. And as we walked in, we see a little kid sitting at the table eating his breakfast with one of the managers. Hey, buddy.
Look at that.
We asked where he came from, and he kept saying he walked to Chick-fil-A.
You know where your house is, right, honey?
It's right across the street, right over there.
Okay, cool. I have children, and the first thing, you get that knot in your stomach because somebody else who's a parent is missing their child. Are you gonna show us where you live?
Yeah.
Okay. We gathered him up. Look at that. Say thank you.
Here's a cow for you.
I walked him to the back of my patrol car.
Are you going to get me in jail?
No, I'm not going to put you in jail. And we started checking the area. All right, buddy, where's your house at? We were wondering where did this child come from. Is it right here? None of these doors are open. None of these garages are open.
I don't live in a duck pond.
So then he explained that he had a white fence.
That's where it is.
Right here?
Yeah.
And that's when we pulled up in the driveway. And then we realized that the call box wasn't working. We had no way to get through the gate. How about this? My initial thoughts were, I can't believe he came out of here. It's the most secure house on that block in reference to having a fence all the way around, front, back, sides. Please.
I'm Phil.
And Victoria.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, do you have a son named William?
William.
Yeah, a little boy?
Yeah. Our 5-year-old William had an adventure a few weeks ago, and we live nearby very close.
Yeah, he was down at the Chick-fil-A. Are you kidding me? No, we have him in our police car. You want to come get him? You could just see the look on his face. It would be for any parent, including myself. It's disbelief.
It's kind of scary, actually, because we didn't realize what was going on until after we came out.
Do you have any idea how he got out?
Yeah, he just unlocked the front door, but he's never done that.
I was worried about him because was he scared? Was he crying? Was he upset?
Come on, little man.
He was quiet, which is unusual for him.
Oh my
Did you get scared?
Why
did you go to Chick-fil-A?
You're welcome.
I think it did shake him up some, so I don't think we really needed to, impress too much that you shouldn't do it again, things like that. I think he understood that it was serious, but we did talk about it.
He said he opened the gate and couldn't find y'all and went down the street.
I know he knows how to get to Chick-fil-A because we walked there. I would have never expected him to come down here on his own in the morning before anybody else in the house was up.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Sir, good to see you again. How are you, sir? How are you, young lady?
We're good.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Hey, dude. You remember us?
Say hi.
Oh, are these for me? Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Oh, man. I can't wait. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, here.
Ow!
How about that from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office? Glad everything turned out okay, and showing his appreciation as well. Well, thanks for joining us here on Florida Live. We're going to wrap up our coverage, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this morning, this afternoon on such short notice. In just a moment, test 1 2 3. You guys got me? All right, I'll keep talking. You guys do what you need to do. We're very flexible.
I won't start talking till it's fixed. Thank you.
All right. How about now, guys? Good. I'll keep talking. I don't have that many jokes, but we'll keep talking till these guys give me the thumbs up, and we'll get started here. We're just excited that you're here. So if we're good, how about now? I'll sing the national anthem if you want. What do you think? All right. There you go. There you go. Well, got off to a good start here technically, right? But in just a moment, the state attorney's going to come up, and fentanyl is a very dangerous drug, and she wants to just highlight the efforts that our office is doing and our hardworking prosecutors are doing to hold those people accountable that would traffic this dangerous drug in our jurisdiction. So, Madam State Attorney.
Before you walk away, sir, could you pull the microphone close to Madam?
Of course.
Good afternoon. You guys hear me okay? All right. Wonderful. Well, as Dave said, thank you guys for being here. It is always really important to me that the community have the facts. And there are a lot of politicians who will say a lot of things. But if you remember me from my first administration, which we affectionately refer to as 1.0, I've always said that facts matter. They mattered then and they matter now. The fentanyl crisis is devastating families across Central Florida, and it deserves solutions, not political theater. Now, the governor has claimed that this office is soft on crime, and that's not only misleading, it's a dangerous distraction from the real work being done by the prosecutors in this office to save lives in this community. Prosecuting fentanyl cases is not about politics, it's about protecting communities. And when politicians try to score points, they do so at the expense of grieving families. My office has one priority: ensuring justice is served based on facts, evidence, and the law, not political narratives. To be clear, these misleading claims about my office have been pushed for years by a governor who relied on false data from a disgraced and now indicted former Osceola sheriff. The Ninth Judicial Circuit has prosecuted fentanyl trafficking cases aggressively and effectively. There have been approximately 100 cases since January alone that have received drug trafficking minimum mandatory sentences. 29 of those cases were of fentanyl traffickers, and 6 of those cases received sentences over 20 years in prison. Our records show that traffickers and distributors are, in fact, held accountable in this circuit. We also take a balanced approach. We pursue strong penalties for those who profit from distribution, while also supporting pathways to treatment for those struggling with addiction. If you remember the platform that I ran on, it was to do just that, to ensure that we help those individuals who are impacted and addicted to drugs, while also holding those who profit and benefit off of the suffering of those individuals and their families accountable. That has not changed. The facts tell the story, not the campaign slogans. Only politics could lead someone to saying something so misleading. We don't measure justice in sound bites. We measure it in lives saved and in traffickers held accountable. And of that, we have receipts. Fighting fentanyl requires a full system response, not just a portion of law enforcement on the front end, but also prosecutors and courts who can carry these cases to the finish line. In the cases that I told you about, with the 29 traffickers who received minimum mandatory drug sentences, those were prosecutors, individual prosecutors who took those cases to court, some of them to trial, and it is a slap in their face to hear the governor of this state say that they're not doing their jobs. The governor has repeatedly emphasized funding law enforcement, but refuses to provide equal support to the offices that actually prosecute the cases. You can't fund half the system and expect full justice to be delivered. When prosecutors don't have the resources to match the volume and complexity of fentanyl cases, communities ultimately pay the price. My office has continued to do this work with limited resources, but the reality is that if we are serious about protecting families, if we're truly serious about protecting communities, then we must fund the entire system. Despite the distractions, I will continue to put people over politics. And I find it ironic that we are here today talking about the message that I send to the prosecutors in this office and to the community. And with that, I want to take you back to a meeting that I held with my prosecutors just a few weeks ago, where I addressed just this very issue. The first thing I want to talk about is minimum mandatory sentences. Everybody has their certain role in the criminal justice system. Our role is not to make decisions on whether or not we agree. Our role is to enforce the law as it is written. But I want to be really, really clear. There are legal reasons to waive minimum mandatories and do downward departures, and then there are illegal reasons, such as I don't agree, and I don't think we should, and I don't want to. And none of those reasons are acceptable here. What my position is on this, okay? My position is that we follow the law. We are going to be conducting case audits. And in the case audit, if we find that people are waiving minimum mandatories without legally sufficient reasons to do so, there will be discipline. And with that, Dave?
We have just a few moments, guys, to take some on-topic questions. So whatever you'd like to ask the state attorney. Yes, sir?
Well, could you lay out, you were talking about funding and how it makes the fight harder. Is there anything or specific you can lay out to where you guys aren't getting the same fundings as other counties or other districts? I'm sorry.
Yes, we did that last week in the press conference where we talked about the budget, the Q2 press conference specifically, and essentially what it showed is that we are the 3rd largest circuit, but even per capita in comparison to the largest circuits, we come in about fourth or fifth place as far as funding is concerned, and that's per capita. So the dollars that they receive per 1,000 people is about $26,000, and ours is about $20,000.
Is there anything that you guys can do on your
the law.
Do you think you can get more funding now that he's announced this money and the success of this program? Does that give you the opportunity to get more funding?
I think that that is going to be up to the legislature of this state, and we will continue to fight for more funding for our circuit. Sir?
What did you mean by the governor relying on data provided by Mr. Lopez?
Yeah.
Accused of several crimes.
Yeah.
Is there something going on between his office and yours?
So that's historical. You're going to have to go back to press conferences held in 2023. I want to say it was March of 2023, where the sheriff came out and accused me of not prosecuting drug trafficking cases. And my response to that just a few days later was showing that the majority of cases that he was referencing were cases that hadn't even made it through the system yet. So he did this whole dog and pony show and held a press conference saying that I had prosecuted 0 out of however many cases that he listed. And the facts, once different news outlets chose to do their own investigations, showed that of those cases, the majority of them hadn't made it through the system, and of the ones that did, his office was actually responsible for those cases not being able to be prosecuted because of different things that they did wrong that led to motions to suppress being granted and things of that nature.
Were you aware of the Burn Baby Burn program and informed about all of these arrests that were made in Orlando?
No, but my understanding is that it's mostly it's federal prosecution that's going to be happening there. So those cases wouldn't come to our office anyway. And it's really important for people to be able to differentiate federal prosecutions from state prosecutions. So if that's being handled in conjunction with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI and the DEA, those are all federal law enforcement agencies. So those cases wouldn't come through our office anyway, not because we wouldn't prosecute them, but because it is federal law enforcement handling those cases. That is a very good question. It is.
Are there other examples other than the fentanyl battle that we know it's a crisis across the nation that you can highlight in the middle of this political message that doesn't seem to have an end?
Tell me about it. No, I mean, I meet with you all on a quarterly basis, and I tell you about all the good work that the men and women in this office is doing. It is not what I want to do, to be spending time going over things like this. It actually distracts from the work that we have to do here in this office. So I come out every month, I tell you how many trials we've had, I told you what our win-loss ratio is, I tell you what we're going to do to make it better. And right now I am focused on rebuilding this office in the best way possible and doing everything that I can to hang on to the talent that we have and to recruit better talent. So what I would love to see from Tallahassee is support for our office. I would love to see funding come into our office, and I would love to see the criticism stop, because the reality is when you criticize me, you criticize the voters in this community who voted to put me here not once but twice. And you have to lead with facts, because people lie, numbers don't. And I'm telling you what the numbers are with regards to our prosecution and minimum mandatory sentences that are given. I've shown you a video from a staff meeting that I held well before the governor ever spoke on this issue. So I didn't just create this so that I could come out here and tell you something today. We are very, very serious about prosecuting fentanyl, and the facts are what matters, and I hope that you all will incorporate that into your reporting on this issue. How?
Will you reach out to his office and say, I mean, you just said his numbers are wrong, he was lying. Will you reach out and try to correct anything that you felt was wrong?
So we're correcting it here today with the people of this community. I don't think the governor intends on being accurate in the information that he has. We have reached out to the governor on several different instances and have not received a response, so I don't have any reason to believe that this would be any different. And so here's the thing. This message isn't for the governor. This message is for the community, the people of the 9th Judicial Circuit who elected me. Because when political statements are made by entities, people can become confused. And it's very important for me, for the people who live here, to understand what the facts are and what we are actually doing in this office to keep our community safe. When people come out and they make false reports that are based on feelings instead of facts, that can create misinformation and disinformation. So this today is to correct and to clarify any misinformation or disinformation that has been given.
Were you surprised he said that about you?
Nothing surprises me anymore.
With the limited resources that your office has, how do you strategize taking on these prosecutions that come in every day, of course including the fentanyl trafficking prosecutions that you'll have to take care of?
So that's a really good question. We prioritize. We prioritize, and it's really difficult, right? Because it's clear that my office is under a microscope. So anything that we say we're not going to do is a problem, but there are only so many hands to do all of the things that we need to do. So we prioritize the crimes that are costing people their lives. And we know that fentanyl kills. So we have to ensure that we prioritize the prosecution of fentanyl cases. We know that we have to prioritize the prosecution of cases that we see these overdoses on, because we want to see those overdose deaths go down. We want to see that eliminated. So we prioritize that. We prioritize violent crime. We prioritize gun violence. And we also prosecute the other cases, and we do things to make our staffing go as far as it can. And that's why you saw back in March and April, I was talking about the fact that we won't take non-arrest cases anymore, because those were things that were eating up our limited resources, and we have to prioritize. So that was part of my prioritization. But yeah, we only have so many people. In my Q2 press conference last week, I talked about the fact that we have about 29% of our staff that has more than 5 years of experience. And prosecuting fentanyl cases is very complex, and we need individuals who have experience who are able to do that. And we need the resources to be able to attract talent who have experience in the criminal justice system. And when you have people who are coming from the other circuits who are funded at $26,000 per capita, when we're funded at $20,000 per capita, those circuits can afford to pay these high-level attorneys more than $100,000 a year. How am I going to get them to come here when all I can offer them is $80,000, right? And these are attorneys, we're talking about attorneys with 5 years or more experience.
I have an email from a victim advocate from the court who's helping a family of a hit and run case that's pending trial. And the email says their telling the family that most of our cases, your cases, are not resolved over a year. Is that because there's a backlog of cases, or what could the situation be?
So I can't speak to that specific situation because I don't have the facts on that, but I can tell you that in general, it takes cases about a year to get through the system, especially when we're dealing with felony cases. And on certain cases, if we're talking about traffic homicides, it'll be a year before we ever even get a report from the Florida Highway Patrol, right? So justice moves slowly in the system, and yes, some of that has to do with case backlogs, but some of it just has to do with the system in general. And that's why when I refer back to the 2023 numbers given by then Sheriff Lopez, it just was unrealistic because he was reporting early in 2023 on cases that happened in 2023. Well, it's not realistic to expect that those cases would have made it through the system in that time frame.
Can you explain why it's complex? You said it was complex to prosecute fentanyl cases?
Right. Well, particularly the fentanyl overdose cases, right? We have to be able to prove that the individual that we're prosecuting is the individual that sold the drugs to the person who made them overdose, right? So there's a lot of groundwork that goes into that and working with law enforcement that goes into that. Now we see that law enforcement is being adequately compensated to do that work. But for my prosecutors, this is one of hundreds of cases that they have on their desk. So what would be ideal is if we had more prosecutors and we could give them fewer cases so they had more time to focus on building the best cases possible so that they can obtain convictions. Other cases on this topic? Questions, rather, on this topic. Okay, so getting back to your question. Unfortunately, these arrests are seemingly political. My decision is not a political one. In this office, we have a duty to follow the law, and law enforcement will make arrests, and my office is responsible for how those cases are handled once they come before us. We'll review each case with fairness, transparency, and respect for both the law and the members of our community. But it's very important to understand that our commitment is to ensure justice is administered with integrity, guided by the facts of each individual case, and mindful of the trust our community places in this office.
Are those cases then still under review at this point?
Oh, absolutely. They're brand new. They just came in and they're just being reviewed now. I know one of the cases, no probable cause was found by the court. 3 of them, I believe the court has found probable cause, and those cases will work their way through the system in the same way that all of the other cases that come through our office do.
I just have another question about how close your office is to making a charging decision related to the Oakley chase.
When we make it, you'll know. All right. All right.
Thank you so much for coming. If you have any additional questions, Anika Hamilton is our PIO, so feel free to reach out to her.
Thank you.
Everybody good with me to disconnect?
Thank you. Very simple. It's very simple. Even Jimmy Carter said it with his commission. They set up a commission with him and Scoop Jackson and some people, highly regarded people. And they said the one thing, the finding was, if you have mail-in voting, you will have corrupt elections. Well, your radical left governor decided that he was going to have all mail-in voting in Colorado. Once you have all mail-in voting, and for whatever reason, the Democrats cheat. And they cheat like, they're not stupid. That's the only thing. They're no good on policy. They're no good on management. They're no good at government. But they're great at cheating. And they stick together, too. I give them credit for sticking together. Please.
Obviously, this is a big win for national security, moving this to Alabama. We all can agree with that.
Big.
Is there any idea of the economic impact this has on the state and on that local area?
Katie, do you want to answer that?
Look, I mean, this. Go ahead.
Please go.
This is going to be tremendous. I mean, the state of Alabama, what we've seen through this process is the worst of Washington. We've seen politics get in the way of what is best for the warfighter, what's best for national security. And the state of Alabama is about to show the country the best among us. So we know the economic impact is going to be tremendous. There at Redstone Arsenal, we're proud to house everything from the FBI to headquarters there for material command to a number of things. We obviously have NASA with Marshall Space Flight Center, and so this naturally fits within. When you look at the decision matrix that they placed in front of us, that's why we ranked so high, is because we have the resources necessary and the ability to build out quickly to meet the needs in front of us. As far as economic impact, it would be tremendous. Does anybody have an exact number? 1,600 jobs.
3,000 spin-off.
With 3,000 spin-off. Look at this. This is teamwork right here. So we are really proud, and the people of Alabama are ready to get to work.
And I've got a housing question, if you could, just for a second, Mr.
Yeah,
President.
please.
Owning a home and going about the American dream seems like it's out of touch for a lot of Americans. Just recently, you pushed out a statement about addressing an emergency housing situation.
That's right. We're thinking about doing that.
Yeah, can you just...
Well, we need a little help from the Fed. We have a man named Jerome Too Late Powell. You probably heard of him. He's too late. He's way too late. And the economy is so strong that it's pushing through that. Normally, it would have been much tougher. But we're doing so well that we're pushing through it. But it makes it very hard for people to get mortgages because too late is too late. Very simple. He's too late. And probably political, whatever. He wasn't too late before the election. Before the election, he was cutting rates, right? Because he was hoping that, I guess, Biden would get in or that Kamala would. He was a big Biden guy. Explain that one. And then he was a Kamala person. But he was hoping, I guess, she'd win, I guess. I don't know. It didn't work out too well. But, we need a very serious cut. I think that if you look back many decades ago, the United States was always the lowest, even if they were doing badly. The United States was, because without the United States, everything in the world would die. It's true. It's so powerful. It's so big. And I made it really big in the first 4 years. Then it started to degenerate with what this Biden administration did. But we built it up to a level that I never thought we could be at this quickly. We're the hottest. We're the best financially. The money coming in is so big because of tariffs and other things, but because of tariffs. Tariff gets us even those other things. Plus, it gets us great negotiators. I settled 7 wars, and numerous of those wars were because of trade, and numerous of the trade deals that I made were because of tariffs. It gives you a great negotiating ability. If that ability were taken away from us by a liberal court acting on essentially foreign nations asking to get help from the United States government, when they've been doing this to us for 40 years, that's why we have $38 trillion in debt. We won't have it for long if they let us, if they allow us to do what everybody knows we should be able to do. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, another Biden-era action that you're now reversing is that you signed a deal last week to make federal buildings adopt and embrace classical architecture styles again. Can you talk to us about why you do that, and also what's your vision?
Well, we want to see beautiful buildings. Now, it's in the eye of the beholder. I've seen architectural reviews over the years. I'm an expert at it. I've gotten a lot of great reviews. But I've seen buildings that I didn't think were very good get great reviews, and I've seen great buildings get bad reviews. So, but it's just a standard. We want to have a good standard. We're building something here. You know, for 150 years, they wanted a ballroom at the White House. We're doing something at the highest level, using great architects and all. And, it's very exciting. But we have a lot of interesting things happening architecturally in D.C. And D.C. is like a different place. And, even the contractor said, sir, we walked down today, we feel like much safer. It's like a different place. Washington, D.C. is great. Now, we're going to also beautify it. We're going to put a topping on the roads. We're not going to rip them apart and take 4 years to build a road that was exactly the same by the time you build it. But we're going to put toppings. We're going to put new medians in. We're going to get the graffiti off. We're going to put tiles up in the tunnels where the tiles are missing. We'll do the whole tunnel instead of, a little area where you see new tiles, old tiles that never look too good. But they could use it. They've been up for 50 years. They've served their duty. But we're going to make this within about a 20-mile radius from the White House. We're going to have this place spick and span. It's going to be crime-free, and it's going to be spick and span. It's going to be. You'll be proud of Washington again. Go ahead, please.
Sir, China's having a massive military parade that President Putin and Kim Jong-un will be attending. Do you interpret that as a challenge to this? And are you concerned at all about those countries trying to be some sort of counterweight?
Not at all. China needs us, and I have a very good relationship with President Xi, as you know. But China needs us much more than we need them. No, I don't see that at all, no.
One more.
And I had actually a very good meeting with President Putin a couple of weeks ago. We'll see if anything comes out of it. If it doesn't, we'll take a different stance.
March today in California ruled that your deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles was illegal. Do you have any response?
Well, it was a radical left judge. But very importantly, what did you not tell me in that question or statement that you made? Pretty much of a statement, I think.
Well, I was asking for your response.
No, you didn't say what the judge said, though. The judge said, but you can leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can continue to be in place. That's all we need. But why didn't you put that as part of your statement? Because the same judge ruled exactly as you said, except the judge said that you could leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can stay, they can remain, they can do what they have to do. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, press. Thank you. Thank you. Let's head out. Let's go, guys. Thank you. Thank you, press. Thanks, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Keep going. Thanks, guys.